Welcome to the Tackle Your Feelings podcast with me, Dr. Hannah McCormack. Tackle Your Feelings is a positive mental well-being campaign brought to you by Rugby Players Ireland in partnership with Zurich Ireland and the Z Zurich Foundation. We want you to rethink how you might approach your own positive mental well-being. With our guests, we will cover a range of topics: confidence, mindsets, life experiences that shape and mould who they are. What makes them more than a player? And joining me on the couch today is Andrew Trimble. So just a little bit about Andrew. Obviously, I'm sure a lot of people know who you are, but just in case there's one person who is unfamiliar, Andrew is a former winger or centre for Ulster and Ireland. He played his debut for Ireland way back, sorry, saying that way back, making you sound very old, in 2005, and you actually replaced Brian O'Driscoll in the Autumn Internationals that year. And then you played all the way through until your retirement in 2018. And you are now the co-host of another podcast, Potholes and Penguins, with Barry Murphy, another former Munster player. And you're the founder of Kairos Tech. Excuse me. Did I pronounce that properly?
Yeah, close enough.
Yeah, because I was reading it earlier and I was like, Karios. And I was like, no, the I is not, but after the R. And that's all about scheduling and communications in elite sport, which is a pretty cool initiative to get into. But I suppose for me, we are actually similar age. You're actually older than me though, so it's okay. So I don't feel too bad.
It's happening more and more.
Yeah, it's better than when you are chatting to all these guys who are playing now, and you're like, I'm literally a decade older than you.
Yeah,
and
I know.
You're like, how does that happen?
It's a bit depressing, all right.
Yeah,
that's why I retired.
But just to go all the way back to your debut, you replaced Brian O'Driscoll, a legend of the sport, a legend of the game in Ireland. What was that like coming in? And I mean, were there pretty big shoes to fill?
Yeah, that was tough. So that was the autumn after the summer when he was on tour in New Zealand and got spear tackled and dislocated his shoulder. So so that autumn then I got my opportunity to play 13. I played 13 for the first season maybe, and then it was kind of that was me really. It was the wing. I was kind of shifted out to the wing after that, but for that game there was a fire. I think there was a fire in the terrace on one end of the old Lansdowne Road, or underneath the terrace. There was some issue, and it was.
I was supposed to go to that game.
Oh really?
And I was supposed to be on that terrace.
Really?
And I remember waking up and hearing it, and obviously social media was not as prolific as it is now.
Yeah, you bought a newspaper or something.
Yeah, I had to go out and flag down the newspaper boy and give him a nickel or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I remember waiting for the whole morning, being like, all right, that was your first game.
Yeah, so instead of you being on the terrace, it
was empty.
Well, no, it wasn't empty. So that's what I had hoped. Not I had hoped. I didn't give it any thought, but I assumed it would be empty. But instead of, and bear in mind, I was playing 13 instead of O'Driscoll, which is massive shoes to fill. Already feeling the pressure, and instead of having the crowd in the terrace at the end of the pitch, they had a massive banner of Drico. And and so you run out and you're just like, that's a reminder of how good I'm gonna try and be today, which is trying to achieve the impossible. I think before off air we were sort of talking about the naivety of youngsters. I think everyone's probably experiencing at 21 years old the naivety of a youngster, just going out and not really thinking too much about it.
Yeah.
And not being really too daunted by the occasion. But if I'd maybe thought more rationally, I would have been more daunted by the occasion. It was big shoes to fill, and it's a big occasion as it is. It was a little bit more pressure than there would have been.
I'd say, knowing now what you know, if you'd known that when you were 21, it probably would have been put you in a worse position, rather than, like I said, the blissful ignorance of youth, almost, that this is your opportunity. But
you're shielded from it, I think, just because you don't realize the enormity of it. And but it's your first game for Ireland is an unbelievable experience, and you kind of, I think you narrate the importance of it, or you can articulate the importance of it, but it doesn't really sink in, or just how special it is. This only happens once, and it's very, very very special. I remember David Humphreys, who would have been, the Ulster player that I looked up to and admired and would have wanted to become something like someday. He was my hero, and then carpooling up and down from Belfast to Dublin with him and training with him, and then playing. He was there that day. I think he was on the bench that day, and he said to me in the run up to the game, he said, just try and take a moment in the game just to drink it in, just a moment, just to get out of the intensity of what you're experiencing there and then, and just look around the old Lansdowne Road. At the time, or whenever you get used to Lansdowne Road, I played there a few times, it got tired. You're like, oh, this is an old stadium. Everybody else is getting, you're looking forward to the Aviva Stadium and the new facilities and all. But nostalgia does this though. Then you think, what a class stadium, what a cool place to play rugby. There's so much history, so many things
and the crowd was so close to the pitch back then, wasn't it?
It was amazing.
Not
it really
me,
was.
I was at home.
You were at home, but Brian was, the picture of Brian was close to the pitch. But yeah, it was. I thought those were really kind of nice words to hear from David Humphreys. Just try and enjoy this. Try your best. Just get out of that moment and just enjoy and just drink it in and just realize where you are and how special and how cool that opportunity is. So I tried to do that, one stage during the game, but it's very difficult to be in the moment,
you can't.
So you have to
can't pause for too long.
Yeah, exactly.
Because then you'll be given out to.
Otherwise, you might never do it again. If things don't go well.
I agree, because it's always something that I think is really interesting to see, and like I would have played sport, never to any kind of like level of where you were, but say I was semi decent at sport, and it's kind of like the idea of. Some people have that confidence that it's almost like someone would say to you, if someone went back, or if we were able to go back in time and speak to the 21-year-old Andrew Trimble, would he have been like, yeah, I'm going to play for Ireland? It's just a given. It's just the next step of my master plan. Or was it something that you were kind of like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm here?
Yeah, I couldn't believe I was there.
Okay.
And even like since then playing, and then even finishing playing, you see young fellas come through, and there's just I think there seems to be a slight bit of a shift towards I think you see young fellas that know how good they are, and young girls who know how good they are. They just got a bit of a strut to them, and you can see that, and I think that's a real tool. It's a weapon that they can use, because if you think you're that good, you usually will be that good, and your performance will back that up, and it's a tool I think confidence is something it's a weapon that people use. I didn't really have that. I had to find ways to kind of manipulate my confidence and trick myself and play mind games with myself to get myself in the right frame of mind, to be brave, to be courageous, to go out there and step up at first receiver, to make reads in defense, to make brave decisions, and just basically back myself. I had to like convince myself, go through this kind of rigmarole and process of trying to get myself to back myself. So I wasn't someone who naturally just had a lot of confidence, but I kind of taught myself to behave like I had confidence. And that was a bit of a skill that I tried to develop.
Well, I was going to say, I would have been similar to you in the sense of I had no confidence. And I have a brother who's older than me who had all the confidence in the world when we were teenagers. I would look at him and I'd be like, why are you so good at sport? Because he was the sporty one. And what makes you successful? And I remember being, I don't know, 12, 13, and being like the realization, that light bulb moment of, because he's so confident. Now, in kind of, again, passage of time, the more I've learned, there's loads more that influence.
They're never as confident as they let on. And this isn't about your brother. But just those type of people are never always as confident as they appear.
But it's like but I still never got to play for Ireland or whatever. I remember, I think I've said this before, that I actually played Leinster under 21, and I remember going into kind of like the pre-season training. Now the season was 2 games, so it wasn't a huge deal. This was way back before women's rugby was much of a thing. And I was like, I'm just going to go and approach it really confidently. And they were like, Hannah, you're going to play number 10. I'd never played 10 before. And I immediately went, I can't do that. So all this like bravado kind of disappeared immediately. And that's something that I'm like, if only I was a little bit more confident. So what was it that you did? You were saying there that it was a skill that you had to learn. It was, you had to find it somewhere. How did you find that confidence? Where did it come from? Or how did it Would you say 21-year-old Andrew, who made his debut in 2005, what was his confidence level compared to 33-year-old Andrew who retired in 2018?
A 33-year-old Andrew, let's forget about him because he was washed up, and he should have retired. A 32-year-old Andrew. To be fair, that last season I didn't cover myself in glory, but prior to that, I definitely learned some things, or just ways to cues and thought processes, and I sat down with a couple of people who were able to, and none of it's rocket science. Some of it could be anywhere from, even just my own ideas was, I would have watched some of my tries on YouTube, or watched I used to watch Jonah Limu on YouTube, just watch it and think, that's like, that's someone who's capable of doing that. There's nothing to say that I'm capable of doing that, but somebody it's a nice kind of cue to get yourself in his shoes, or just imagine breaking tackles like he did, or having footwork like he did, or other loads of other players as well. Just kind of my favorite players who just would have watched highlight reels and just got into feeling good on the ball, feeling confident on the ball, looking forward to anticipating getting the ball in my hands, and be excited about taking defenders on, rather than being nervous about getting the ball in my hands because there's something expected of me here, or worried about getting hit, or worried about making the wrong decision, or all this sort of stuff. So would have watched a lot of video before games, just video that I would have enjoyed, got me in the right headspace. And then I created a list. I wanted, a few years into my career, I created a list of like 10 games that I had really done well and felt like I had performed well and felt good about myself. And I just made a list of those 10 games, and I remember them all vividly. You remember all your good memories, and then whenever you get nervous, then all the bad memories kind of pop back in there. They're not really wanted, but they find a way to weasel their way into your head. But yeah, those 10 games, I just made a list of them, and the person who I spoke to at the time, called it my confidence resume. So that's my just often when you arrive at an away game or a home game, actually, you just go for a walk out into the pitch, and then come back in, then get changed, then start warm up. But when you're walking around the pitch, generally that's just took up with everybody's nervous, so everybody's just talking to each other, just talking rubbish, stupid conversations that don't need to be had. There's no you don't get any value from those conversations. So I used to walk off by myself and just think about those games, think about moments in those games, think about how it was likely, if I can do that, then if I've done that repeatedly, then it's likely I'm going to be able to do that now. Or even just remind myself about the game plan. Just give yourself no reason to think that something's going to go wrong, because if I was left to my own devices, my mind would go in pretty unhealthy places. One teammate at the time, I had a couple of conversations with him about it, about how I always just anticipate the worst that could happen, and worst thing that could, everybody's going to find out that I'm not that good tonight or today in the game. And sharing this with one of my teammates at the time, he said, walking in from the warm up back in to get ready to come back out for a kickoff, he just always did the same thing, popped in his head: why did I do this to myself? Because it's so stressful. It's so like, this is all everything I was talking about is what I wanted to do and what I wanted to achieve, and then there's the pressure of coaches and the spectators and journalists and family and everything, not letting anybody down, and I find it very stressful. That's why I had to find ways to deal with it and cope with it.
And why did you do it? Why, I know it wasn't you who came up with the kind of question of why do I put myself through this, but there must have been enough to counteract all of those nerves, all of the kind of doubts, or was it the focusing on the good stuff that kind of made you go, no, this is actually completely worth it, togging out, putting the work in, feeling the anticipation, or was it something else?
No, it definitely, there's enough high moments. I suppose whenever you go down the route of professional rugby, you don't experience those moments. You haven't had all the pressures yet, really, because you play maybe schools, Ireland under 20s, and still not the same kind of attention or pressure and expectation. And then once you get, then you're into pro rugby at that stage, and you're playing every day and training every day with Ulster. You get an opportunity there, so you're kind of there before you have to realize how to cope with it. So I would say you go down that route, and no one in their right mind, if they've got an opportunity to do that, say, this isn't for me. That never happens. No one does that. Everybody is up for the challenge. And to be fair, that's probably a reflection of the type of person who gets to that. You're ready to cope with it. But then even to your point, the highs are high, and there's fun times, and there's great experiences, and there's good people, and there's lot of good times. I was kind of getting bogged down in the your mind doesn't think rationally often. You don't always think. That's what I suppose what I was trying to do with the confidence resume, trying to think rationally. I've done this before. I enjoyed those games. Once the whistle goes, I'm into the game. I'm enjoying them. I just don't like the build up to a game, or maybe the night before a game, or the morning of a game, because your mind's doing stupid stuff and thinking irrationally. So it's just about being rational and thinking, if I can just get through this, where my mind is playing mind games with me here, if I get, as soon as that whistle goes, I'm into it and I'm loving it. And this is the sport I grew up playing because I love playing it for no other reason. No pressure, no expectation. Well, there was some expectation from my dad, I suppose, because he's a rugby man, and he's always wanted, wanted me to go down that route. But generally, it's just about thinking rationally and thinking, once I get into this, this is the game I love, and all of this stuff that's going on in my head here, that's gonna be gone, long forgotten once the game started. And if things go well in the game, if I play well, if we get a win, there's a massive upside to this, so it's worth it.
And was rugby, just to kind of rewind slightly, was rugby kind of the only sport you grew up playing, or were there more sports that you did, or was it your dad kind of? And obviously, I'm assuming willingly you were encouraged.
I wasn't coerced into it. I tell a story about whenever I was younger and I had a Premier League football annual. And my dad confiscated it and replaced it with an Irish rugby book, and that was kind of it. And I've told that story so many times, I'm not even sure exactly how that happened or what, but it's just one of these stories you tell. But anyway, my dad was a rugby man and wanted me to play. I'm sure he would have been happy for me to play anything, but he was the mini rugby coach at Korean Rugby Club, and it wasn't long before I was pretty much on board, as much of a rugby man as my dad was, and I loved it the whole way through, even from playing mini rugby when you're 8, 9, 10, 11, all the way through into school, and your best friends are your teammates, and Schools Cup when you're in school just means the world to you. It just means everything to you, and it's so exciting. And your whole, you start school in September, and everything is looking forward to Schools Cup rugby in January. You just can't wait. It's very exciting, and I loved it. And as school went on, I started getting a bit better and a bit more confident, and you obviously enjoy things more when you're better at them. So it wasn't long before I was a proper rugby man, just like my dad.
And so that obviously kind of carried through, and the enjoyment was what you pulled on to make sure that you turned up to training, or to tog out at the weekend, or drive yourself down to Dublin, or carpool down to Dublin to get involved in the camp. Was it always enjoyable? Were there ever any kind of lows or
there's plenty of lows, loads of lows. Injuries, I had a lot of injuries as well. I only had really one long-term injury, but I had a lot of shorter injuries. The shorter ones are way easier to cope with, because quite often the workload's pretty heavy during the season, and every game is big, every game is important, every game's physical and physically demanding. So getting a break every now and again with I've got a load of kind of hand breaks and elbow, and this a lot of kind of ones that are 5 weeks, 6 weeks, those sort of injuries. They're fine, because you think, right, 5 weeks, okay, you immediately see an upside, because you're going, right, well, a couple of weeks rehab, and then I'm starting to get back into strengthening up my lower body, strengthening up my upper body, and then starting back running. And I might be able to get a bit quicker, I might be able to get a bit stronger and hit the ground running. So you always see the upside, but the ones that are really tough to deal with are the back-to-back injuries. Nearly getting fit and then getting injured, or getting fit for a couple of weeks and then picking up another injury. Those are the tough ones. And then to compound that, the injuries that you pick up at a time whenever you're going, I was playing really well now, and Six Nations is coming up, and I think I had a really good chance of playing well. Those are the ones you're going, right, well, what could have been? Then your mind starts to think about that and sort of spiral a little bit. So injuries, and then selection for me, and just feeling like form is difficult, and going back to basics, and always trying to challenge where you're at, and how do you get better, and what's wrong with me. If something goes wrong, it doesn't mean everything is wrong. It means maybe there's one thing in your preparation wasn't right. So yeah, again, it's probably just thinking rationally about that, about form.
Seems like it was a lot of kind of trusting the process of, like I said, you've put the work in, you can put the work in, even referring back to previous experiences of, whether it's matches you've done well or even injuries that you've gone through in the past or whatever. But like, that's not necessarily something that comes naturally to people. So was there any kind of moment, or was there a pivotal kind of part of your career, or even during the span of your career, that happened outside of rugby that kind of made you go, this is what it's about? Like, what was your biggest life lesson that you learned, or if you can think of one?
Yeah, so being confident, forcing yourself to be confident was a big kind of life lesson, or teaching yourself to be confident. And I did that on the pitch for myself, but always whenever I go into a different context, public speaking or anything, studying, I just always had to say to myself, right, now you're into something new. And my default position is you're probably not gonna be very good, and that actually that's probably rational, but it's also rational that if you're a quick learner and you commit time to this, and you're committed to it, then chances are you'll get good at this quite quick. So my thing was, I was made captain of Ulster one year, myself and Rob Herring, like a shared captaincy or co-captains or whatever. I'm not sure if that might have been popular for a year or two, and then I think maybe based on how we did that season, maybe it became very unpopular. But
that was a lesson learned by rugby.
By rugby, by the whole of world rugby. It was nice because Rob was able to blame me and I was able to blame Rob, so it just felt like no one got the blame. Things didn't go well. But no one in their right mind would look back in that season as a vintage Ulster season. Oh, look at the leadership that there was here. But I know for me personally, I know I developed quite a lot that year, and I know I developed as a leader. I developed in confidence, how I address the team, how I speak to the team, how I lead the team, and I felt like I changed quite a lot in that season. Again, no one else would look in and I would see any difference. But the principle was, at the start of the season, I took on something that I didn't think I was equipped for, I didn't think I was capable of delivering. And by the end of the season, I felt really good. I felt like I was confident in being able to deliver that. So I thought, right, that should be a bit of a lesson. That principle is, you start something that you're not really that familiar at. You might be that good at the start, but you will get good if you really work hard at it and get the head down. And so same lesson. I studied. We had our second child arrived in 2017. And then I started studying night class, or finance masters in Queen's in Belfast. Never done finance before. I just thought, let's give it a go. And I tried to have the same mindset. And you never quite achieve that. Here's what I've learned and here's how I apply it. But I tried to apply it, just go at this and be confident and just, study hard and you'll get there. And then same thing, I did really well. It's something that was completely foreign to me. And at that stage, I was like, right, how many times do I have to learn this lesson? If you just back yourself, and I wish at that stage, I was into my 30s, and it was probably too late to really back myself, or it to impact, how I was going to perform on the pitch, with immediate effect, really, because it was kind of past my best, physically sort of past my best. But outside of that, and business after rugby, or podcast, or speaking opportunities, or stuff like this, just be confident, because you're capable. And it was something it doesn't naturally come to me, but I just always have to remind myself, you've learned this lesson a few times, you can do these things well if you work hard at it and you're committed to it. And I think that's quite a healthy place to be. And that's what I would tell the 20-year-old me starting off playing professional rugby. You need to back yourself. You need to work hard. Of course, the only reason you back yourself is because if you've put the work in to get into a position to be able to perform. But you have to back yourself, because I was looking around me, seeing other people that were backing themselves. And even, I've talked with my dad a couple of times, but my dad just to say, why are you passing the ball to someone who's in not as good a position as you are? You should take defenders on, and you'll be the one that scores a try. Or your dad obviously sees things from his son's perspective. You know, he wants me to do well. He doesn't really care about Ireland or about Ulster that much.
He wants the Trimble name to be written in the headlines. Yeah.
Exactly. But there's still something to that. You know, you just need to back yourself.
It was really interesting because like it kind of fits in, because I think a lot of people would have heard of that phrase of, you know, fake it till you make it. And I think when it comes to confidence, you can definitely fake it till you make it. But like I said, you need to put the work in as well, because there's only so much you can fake.
Yeah.
I think you can fake the bravado, you can fake the outward confidence.
Yeah.
But to build that inner confidence, it does take that kind of work and that effort, and that maybe sitting down and being like, we've done this before. How many times do we need to learn that lesson and kind of go from there? But
it's habit formation as well, even outside of rugby, even just like socially walking into an environment where, you know, maybe, you know, I would have been shy, I would have kind of shied away, I would have been a little bit quiet, and I would have had things to say, but I wouldn't have been confident enough to say them. And it's just, I suppose, forcing yourself to get out of your comfort zone. The more you get out of that comfort zone, the more comfortable you come in that place. And that would have been parallels for me off and on the pitch. And if I got better at that off the pitch, it helped me on the pitch, and other way around as well.
Yeah, it's funny because I would have said I was really shy as well. And I remember saying that to people who I'd met maybe in my 20s and being like, I'm actually a really shy person. And they're like, no, you're not. What are you talking about? But again, it's like you go into a room and you're like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to make conversation with this person. And even now, in my 30s, there are times I go into a room and I'm like, I'm just going to pretend I can't see anyone because I don't want to say hello, or I can't do the small talk thing, or, you know, and then you're like, yeah, but just do it anyway. You know, what's the worst that could happen?
But it's not even just the not wanting to talk to people, it's the wanting to talk to people, but not feeling like you can, or you're capable of holding that conversation, or maybe they don't want to talk to me, or, you know, it's, if you don't want, I think that's probably something, if you don't want to talk to people, then again, to be confident enough not to talk to them. I love going to the gym and sticking my headphones in and just ignoring people. I love the confidence to be rude to people is a great thing as well.
So that's why there's that reputation about you in your local gym. Oh, okay, I get you. No, but yeah, I think you're dead right, because there is that difference as well of like, if you don't want to do it, even backing yourself to be like, I don't have to do it, because I think you do get to a stage where you're like, you can become almost comfortable in yourself of like, I don't have to prove myself to anyone, I don't have to put myself out there. The comfort zone exists and it's given a bad rep, but sometimes it's actually a really positive thing to retreat to when you need it. Because there's only so much that we can deal with sometimes. Like, you know, you can be overwhelmed with things, and pushing yourself all the time can actually be kind of detrimental in other ways. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen it or experienced it, where it can potentially be related to injury, where people try to come back too soon because they're like, no, I can do it. I don't have to go through each step of recovery. I can skip ahead because I know, you know, I've been there before, or I'll pretend that I'm okay, or like, do you ever witness anything like that, where you're kind of like, whether for yourself or someone else, you're like,
just chill, because whatever's going on in your head, I'm sure there is some sort of, you know, connection there. But if, you know, 1,000 people, 5,000 people have had this exact injury before, and it took them 3 weeks to get to that stage, why would you get there in 2 weeks? It's you know, there's enough. You kind of, you know, back the science and back the medics, and if they tell you a plan, if you stick to the plan, then you're probably in good shape. It's not a reflection of confidence, it's probably a reflection of something else, less positive. I would say. But the other one about you know, saying no to things, or just being confident enough not to do things, you need to be aware that the people will talk about you. If you're not, you know, agreeable, or, you know, if you've decided to go a certain route, and someone else says something, if you say no to it, you know, you're probably going to be talked about. You need to be comfortable with that. You need to be comfortable about people thinking something about you that's maybe not true. That's really hard. I find that quite hard. I'd be a bit of a yes man. I'd be a bit of a pleaser, and then you end up just trying to please everyone and pleasing no one. And again, that comes with confidence, and just saying to yourself, like, this is definitely the best decision to make. And in business, I find that quite a bit as well. And just being a yes man and being a pleaser doesn't really help that much.
No, I think that's something that I've become a lot more aware of as I've gotten older as well. Is that, you know, it's that phrase, isn't it? It's like the people that matter won't mind, and the people that mind don't matter, which can be very difficult in a business sense, but definitely in a personal sense. If someone's going to give out about me for saying no to them, then do I really need to, you know, be concerned about them being annoyed?
They'll be offended at something else.
Yeah.
If you got that one right, there'll be something else.
Yeah.
And actually, I find the sensible people, if you say no, or if you're less agreeable for something that's important, if you feel like you've made the right decision and you make it with conviction, I think people have more respect for you that way anyway, rather than just rolling over.
Because I've seen it, and like I've definitely done it, where you say yes and you try to appease people and you try to make yourself as accommodating as possible, but it's usually to the detriment of your own, you know, whether it's your physical health or even your mental well-being, that you're kind of like spreading yourself too thin or becoming the person who runs after people or chases things up. So like, it's definitely one that I think people can take on, both inside, outside of sport, inside, outside of school, work, anything like that. But has there ever been a time where you've regretted either saying yes or no to someone, or anything but that has been like a proper learning process again?
I'm gonna struggle for this one, I think. Maybe.
No regrets. No regrets.
I know, yeah. I never say no. It sounds cheesy to say no regrets, doesn't it?
It does, but it doesn't, because like I think again, like I think everything that you do brings you to who you are now. And if you didn't make those mistakes, if you didn't say, like I spoke about it before, just with you and on another episode, where, you know, I do regret not being more confident at that under 21 stage of being like, yeah, putting my hand up. I'll try playing number 10.
Yeah.
Never done it before.
Yeah.
Have never played number 10 since. Didn't have a hugely long rugby career, but never ended up playing in that position. And sometimes I'm like, why didn't I do that? But I think if I hadn't said no, and if I hadn't been able to reflect on that as something that upset me, then I wouldn't have learned that the next time around I should say yes. Or the next time around I should put my hand up and go, actually, I will do that. I'll give it a go. Like, I'll give podcast presenting a go, and sure, we'll see. Like, never done it before. We'll see how it goes. But, you know, 50, when it's like, oh my God, being under 21 was so long ago. 15 whatever years ago, obviously wouldn't have had the confidence to do it. Definitely wouldn't have put my hand up for it. But if, you know, I wouldn't be who I am now, the Hannah I am now wouldn't have been, or wouldn't have gotten to where she is, if it wasn't for saying, regretting something. So that almost eliminates it as a regret. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, gotcha. I'm just thinking of a couple of things recently with being a yes man and being a bit of a walkover and being a pleaser gets me in trouble sometimes. And it's exacerbated because whenever you finish playing rugby, it's quite, you're kind of cut loose a little bit, and you get some support obviously, and you got a bit of an idea where you want to go, but it can take a while to find your feet. And if you get an opportunity to do something, you always say yes, especially at the start, because you don't know where it could lead, or you don't know, there might be more opportunities there. Maybe, you're kind of up for grabs. And the real kind of high profile, the rock stars of the world, they can pick and choose what they want. But the guys like myself, if you get an opportunity, take it seriously and really see where it could go. So I suppose I've fallen for that a few times with work. Kind of my 9 to 5, my kind of priority, I suppose, is Kairos, the business, and running that day to day. But do a bit of podcasting as well, and do a bit of commentating as well. And there's always a few opportunities as well out there, and I always feel obliged to take advantage of them and go for them. And there's a couple of times recently where I've ended up just doing back-to-back stuff for like days on end. on weekends get eaten up with commentating, and then the next weekend gets eaten up with something else, and then before you know it, haven't left the kids to school for a week, or haven't hung out with Hannah for a while, or as much as I say Kairos is the priority for me work wise, and the family are the priority for me over everything else. And definitely I found myself, and there was one occasion there a few months ago where I just looked at my schedule, and it ended up just being crazy. And actually I ended up doing everything badly because I'd committed to all these things, and it's just I only committed to them because I felt too bad to say no. And that's such a stupid reason, because in saying yes to a piece of work or an opportunity, you're saying no to hanging out with Anna and the kids, or getting my head sharp and being able to do something good or do it well for a Kairos. And I ended up, it was like 10 or 12 days. I just went back to back traveling, doing events, commentating, travel. And it was, as I said, I did everything badly. And that was a real lesson to me. Just pick this stuff, don't turn down good opportunities, but try and be selective about things, and just make sure you do them, and do them really well. Because if you do something badly, if you're not going to get another opportunity to do that anyway, because you've cocked it up. And I was a shadow man at the end of a couple of weeks, and it was stupid. No one wins that way. So that's a bit of a lesson for me. Just make a decision, and confidently say yes or no to things, and prioritize things, and get those in line.
Yeah, because I remember someone saying to me before, I think I went to a seminar on, it was like, it wasn't work-life balance, it was more like kind of time management. And the idea that, you're given all these opportunities, and you think, I need to say yes to them, because if I say no, they're going to pass me by. But the point that he made was that you can say no to something if you say it confidently, if you give it, if you give them, you don't even have to give like a reason necessarily, but people assume that it won't ever happen again. But usually what happens is more respect is given to you for prioritizing something else, or saying, I can't do it right now, but I'll always be interested in doing it again. If the opportunity comes up, they'll think of you again. Whereas, like you said, if you go, you do it, you're overwhelmed, you're overtired, you could mess it up, and then they're like, we're not going to get him in again.
He's rubbish.
Yeah, what's that about? Whose idea is that? Fire them as well.
Fire them. And now you've just cost someone else their job.
Yeah. So now you've got two people to worry about. But no, I think, again, all of these things, though, so much easier to say than to do sometimes. And I think, again, I know we've spoken about confidence quite a bit already, but it's that idea of backing yourself, and not assuming that someone else who does it has this. Some people will have an innate level of confidence over and above you, but in the same way that, you're a much better rugby player than me. Maybe a little,
Not a 10.
Not a 10, no. But like, doesn't make you a better person than me. Like, doesn't mean I'm a bad person in comparison to you. So just because someone has an innate level of confidence, whereas you and I have had to work on our confidence, doesn't mean that we are worse off or lesser people than those. So it's like, just to kind of keep that in mind. I think anyone who's listening and going, I want to be like, obviously everyone's going to listen and want to be like us.
Want to be like us, yeah.
So,
disclaimer. Might not
we
always happen.
Can't promise. But just another question that I have for you. I know you said that you obviously played rugby all the way through school, and like schools rugby was something of a highlight for you, kind of working. You'd start school in September and you'd already be looking forward to January. Do you have a lot of people who you would still be in contact with from the school setup that you had, or even from the rugby club? Like, I don't know if your Wikipedia page said that you sometimes still tog out for Coleraine Rugby Club.
I played for them once.
Someone needs to go back and update that then.
Yeah.
But like, what was your support system like growing up? And are you one of those people who's managed to hold on to the same people going through? Because, as an elite athlete, you go down this route of this idealized path of success. And sometimes Irish people can be very, call a spade a spade. Irish people can be quite resentful when someone else
does well.
Yeah. Like, did you manage to hold on to people, or who were the people who you did hold on to? What separated them from other people, or was it just a case that you kind of you grew up, moved away, went down a different path, and like who's your support network now?
Yeah, so even all the way through school, I had a lot of friends outside of rugby. So that I always felt like that gave me a nice kind of bit of balance, I suppose, and not everything was as one dimensional as everything's about this game, because it's already as important as it is to you without having everywhere you turn, everybody's in that category for you. So yeah, friends outside of rugby and a lot of interests outside of rugby that were important just to balance me up and I suppose yeah, support me whenever I was playing, and know that as rugby kind of progressed, it was getting slightly more serious for me, and appreciate that, and kind of having consistent kind of friends and family obviously that were with me the whole way through that process. Then it felt like they contributed to that, or their relationship kind of grew as my career would have grown, or the exposure I would have got to the kind of real high pressure environments would have changed. So yeah, I always got loads of support. I felt like whenever I was playing, my wife just knew me so well, just knew when to leave me alone, basically, or when whenever she told me to kind of snap out of it, or it just does weird things to you. The expectation of performance, it did weird things to me on game day. I just couldn't speak to anybody that was outside of the rugby bubble. But she knew that, and she knew that I was just acting weird. She just rolled her eyes and just left me to it, or she was very supportive, but in a really understanding way. It would have been, she would have tried to make sure when the kids were up during the night, that I would have been getting plenty of sleep and getting looked after, and just making sure I was ready to perform that week in the game and everything. So just practical support, and then when things weren't going as well, then the ability to be honest with each other, and the ability to be honest. But I often kind of didn't really share that much. I'd rather kind of just think about it, and then once I'd thought it all through and processed something, if there was any issues going on in my head, I would never go to Anna, chat to her, unless it was complete clarity in my head. So that could take weeks. And I'd say whenever maybe at the start when we were just kind of dating, then she would have been, what's going on? She would ask me if you could, and then not long after, she'd started to realize, I'll talk to you about this in about 5 weeks time.
Yeah.
I don't even know what I'm thinking at the minute. There's no point in having this conversation, and I've no interest in having it. So she very quickly, she started not only to get up to speed with how I got on, she started understanding me and looking for a few cues in me and what I was thinking, and knew me better than I know myself. And even again, the transition from rugby into business, or other bits and pieces outside of sport, into the afterlife, as they call it. She was very aware that I would have to say yes to a lot of things that I didn't really know what they were going to be, but she was very supportive of me kind of finding my feet and finding something to get my teeth into, and finding something that I would enjoy as much as rugby, hopefully.
Yeah. So, and then you said your dad was, and kind of, well, I don't know if he still is, kind of like that kind of coaching figure for you. Someone encouraged you to be a rugby player, encouraged you to be a better rugby player, to see your name in lights, because it's his name as well. Yeah. But like, were there other people who kind of maybe supported your career that, looking back, you're like, I don't know if I would have made it without them?
Well, there's the emotional support, what I described, kind of what Anna did, but even just the physical support. Like my mum and dad were at every single game, all the way through school. Under 20s, they went to Argentina for the under 20s and 21s World Cup it was back then. They went on tour a couple of times with Ireland, loads of every international, most Ulster games. They were both there. And that was fine for dad. It probably was less of a big deal for dad, because he wanted to go to these events. He loved rugby and he wanted to be there. Mum could have took her left rugby, but she was there just to support me. She traveled to New Zealand for the World Cup in 2011 just to support me. Sure, she'll have a bit of crack when she's there, but she was supporting me, and she didn't enjoy the game. She watched her games through her fingers. Like, she hated I obviously never got to see this, but people would have told me, like, she was just acting bizarrely in the stand, just couldn't watch the game. She'd
nervous for you,
really nervous, yeah. And I never actually got to. I assume it was more injuries. Dad would have been nervous if I had played badly, and Mum would have been nervous in case I got an injury or something. So, and she always wanted me to be happy. There was that support. That support's brilliant whenever you need it, and you go to it when you need it. But you don't get like an objective help from your mum and dad, because you're always the best player on the pitch.
Yeah.
Always.
You hope so.
Yeah. Dad would have been slightly more honest, I suppose, but neither of them would be as honest as a coach. You don't. There's a lot of you don't necessarily get from you get the support and the the pat on the back, and you're going great from your mum and dad, but no matter what. So yeah, there's a few you have to take a pinch of salt. If they say you're playing well, you said I played well last week. And,
You also, thought I did really well at home when I tied my own shoelaces.
Yeah, exactly.
But it obviously is nice though to have that, because there are some people who don't have that kind of support from home, or have people questioning whether or not they should be following a dream, or questioning whether or not that is this worth it, or you do hear of the stories of people who don't appreciate what sport is, and what it can do, even just from a developmental point of view, and they discourage people from playing, or they discourage people from having hobbies, or family members who are like, no, you have to work hard, you have to earn money, you have to go to college, you have to do this, that, and the other. So having that, it must be nice to have had someone who was willing, even your mum, willing to go to the other side of the world to support you, even though the experience for her wasn't that wasn't that enjoyable. Evidently, not that you knew at the time.
Exactly. But no, I think I'm probably learning some lessons. I'm learning about my mum and dad by having kids now, and even a young fella plays mini rugby. My 3-year-old's probably too young, definitely too young at this stage. The 5-year-old she got hit in the head with a ball on day one, and then I think it hit her on the nose, and she just said, "This isn't for me." So she's been an Irish dancer ever since. Irish dancer / gymnast. Which is fine. I would love her to get into rugby, but it's not going to be her thing. But yeah, Jack, my 7-year-old, plays rugby and loves it, and definitely I learned things from them about not trying to be overbearing, not trying to push them down a particular route just because we're a rugby family. It doesn't mean they have to play rugby. They do whatever they want, and trying to be appreciative that whatever direction they go, if they show an interest in anything, then we'll get them something, or maybe get them some coaching, or look up something on YouTube, a bit of a tutorial, or help them get more interested in it. And I think that's probably more exciting, because they can go down a different route that you never imagined this typical rugby family might have gone. So I think just trying to be supportive of whatever they're doing. Again, Dad's model was, we're a rugby family, you're going to be a rugby player. Worked for me, and it was fine. But that it's
he must be secretly delighted that Jack is now also seemingly going down
that path. I think
he's
so.
like, another generation of Trimbles to
Got
put.
He can die a happy man.
More of my name in the papers, please. Exactly. But and so then tell me this, when you were younger, who was it that you looked up to, or who was your role model? I know you mentioned David Humphreys being someone that you really, I don't know if emulated is the right word, but you really did look up to him at the start of your career. But even when you were younger than that, coming through the ranks, aiming for, pulling on that, first the Ulster jersey and then the green of Ireland or whatever, was there anyone that you looked up to and you were like, I want to be like him?
Yeah, well, from a sporting perspective, which is mainly what my interests were, really, Eric Cantona. Eric Cantona and David Humphreys. Could you have two more contrasting? Could you have more?
Good guy, not so good guy.
I like to think there's a hybrid of Eric Cantona and David Humphreys out there. And I want to meet that guy.
I thought you were going to be like, and I'm that guy.
Oh yeah.
No, you weren't. You didn't put your. You suppose you didn't. It wasn't really a thing.
Yeah, collars were gone by the time. Yeah, I might have had a year of a collar maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, those two from a sporting perspective. Simon Gagan, I used to love Simon Gagan as well. I'm not sure Simon Gagan was as good as we thought at the time. I think just his 14 teammates were terrible. Every time we get the ball, we were so excited because this guy is halfway decent. I don't know, can't really remember. But I just remember getting very excited during Six Nations if Simon Gagan got the ball.
And then kind of when you did start playing, then was it David that kind of spurred you on to be better, or was it I know obviously you were working on your own confidence then, but were there other people who kind of inspired you to want to be best or want to work on your confidence, or was it something else?
Yeah, the working on the confidence bit probably came whenever I needed it. I don't think I needed it until I got left school and started realizing this is actually really intense.
Yeah.
So yeah, David Humphries was just my rugby kind of hero growing up. I'm not sure if I was widely enough read to know to have someone that was someone who I looked up to, wanted to kind of emulate the confidence of. Yeah, I don't know if I had a role like that in my life. I'm more and more appreciative of nowadays, like I suppose because with work, with business, I quite like following entrepreneurs and seeing where they're getting and see where their business came from and what they've done with it, and then just from public speaking and podcasting, I like like following creative people as well, and I have a real I really admire people who have a creative idea and just build something from scratch, a concept from scratch, and I just think that's really amazing. Like I love Larry David. I just think I could just watch him.
Yeah.
24/7. He's so creative. I love that, and I think that creative side is something that's maybe stripped out a little bit from professional rugby, because you're in an environment where you're kind of bombarded with the same demographic, the same type of people. You've got the same opinions. We all went to rugby playing schools. Everybody probably thinks a lot of the same ways. There's one or two more characters coming into the game, but I think that's definitely a way that rugby can improve. Just bring in more diverse characters and more different influences feeding into that environment. Otherwise, it's the same people for 12 years, and that just stifles creativity and makes people, rather than people thinking this is a cool idea, let's pull that thread and see where it goes. No one does that, so everybody just goes, I'm not going to pull that thread in case one of the boys makes fun of me, or if I do something stupid or it doesn't work out. I think that's something that environment kind of really lacks.
And has anyone come to you now, because like obviously retired in 2018, which is 5 years ago now, like has anyone kind of come to you and been like, Andrew, how did you do it? Like, I want to be like you now. Like, because I'd say growing up, or sorry, when you were playing, you would have been a lot of people, like role model yourself. But have you ever come face to face with someone who's been like, tell me how you did it?
Make the transition from
well, anything really, just like be like, I want to be like you, Andrew.
Not really. You would meet people every now and again. He said, oh, I got a picture of you when I was 14, 15. And that's interesting, because they're obviously they're twice that age now. And that's so funny, and usually you get that picture with them not because they're a fan, but because their dad is a fan.
Okay.
So just to put that in context. But yeah, no, it's life goes very quickly, and time seems to go very quickly, and everybody grows up, and then all of a sudden you're being very nostalgic about something that seemed to happen yesterday. But yeah, I suppose I'm not sure if you're aware whenever you're playing just how potentially big an impact you can be in people, or how much attention there is on you and the Six Nations and the Ireland team and everything around that and everything that goes on. It's a fairly big responsibility, I think, for young fellas playing in that environment, to making sure that they're a good advocate for making good decisions, or I suppose being good people, I suppose.
And you've mentioned it a couple of times actually, is that kind of pressure of pressure of the fans, pressure from teammates, pressure from coaches. And we laughed about the pressure from your dad being like, why did you not score more tries? Why is your name not in the headlines or whatever? But how did you deal with that? And is that something that you've been able to, that then there's pressure now being the founder of a company, which was pretty innovative, or is innovative. I'm not saying it's gone past its level of innovation, or even, you know, starting off the podcast with Barry, like, was dealing with pressure. How did you do it when you were playing, and has that now helped you deal with pressure coming through?
Yeah, maybe the lesson is that even the first time when you do something, it won't be that bad. And if it's not that bad, then that's a good place to start, because next week it'll be better and it'll be better again. With the business, I kind of fell into that a little bit, because I always wanted to improve, you know, how a team communicate. I always thought that was an area that we should do better. Always thought, like, we've got there's email threads and PDFs and, you know, multiple WhatsApp groups and whiteboards for appointments and written S&C programs. And I always thought, like, why is this is so chaotic? Let's improve how we schedule, how we communicate, how we share files, how we make appointments, all of that stuff, and have it in one place. I thought that would be a but I didn't understand how to. I was like, that's a good idea, let's get lunch and then go to the gym this afternoon. Like, I didn't really know how to make that. So I suppose I got enough support from my business partner at the time, who again didn't know everything, but knew a little bit more than me, and knew how to kind of structure that, or who to speak to, or maybe similar to how I just wanted wanted to go out in the pitch and have this complete performance. But that doesn't just happen. You don't just create that. You have to say, right, 6 months earlier, what are you doing that's going to allow you to perform in 6 months' time? Joe Schmidt was the one who kind of allowed me to put some structure around my preparation, get organized, and really simplify how I performed. And similar to, you know, my business partner at the time said, okay, that's a cool idea. All it is an idea. Let's speak to people. Let's put some structure around this. Let's build an MVP, minimum viable product. Let's build a prototype. Let's get some feedback. Let's improve it. You know, all this kind of stuff. But ultimately we created something from scratch, and now we've got, you know, something, you know, working with all, you know, the best football teams in England, a number of international rugby teams, basketball teams, hockey teams. So we're very proud of what we've done, and there's something in terms of that creativity piece I was talking about as well. Just creating something from nothing is something that we're really proud of, you know, really excited about that project. We're still only getting started. So I suppose that's where I'm aware that, you know, that doesn't happen. I got lucky. I stumbled into it and stumbled into the right environment where it was possible to create, you know, to be part of that project. But not everybody has that luxury. And whenever you finish playing rugby, you're Andrew. You used to be a rugby player, now you're just Andrew, and, you know, how much of that identity. So I think a lot of guys, if you haven't got something else to get your teeth into, they're as passionate about as you were rugby, then I think there can be a massive kind of identity crisis for guys as well, and
for sure
that can be really tricky. So sorry, I threw a lot there. I kind of rambled a little bit.
Don't worry, I do exactly the same as you evidently would have figured out. But what was I going to say? Like, even I know that, and it's something that I can definitely appreciate, not necessarily identify with wholly, but the idea of being Andrew the rugby player, now you're Andrew the wannabe. And I'll say this, like, as in that it can be perceived that it's like, well, what's he know about this? You know, so the wannabe businessman or the wannabe entrepreneur. And like, did you feel that kind of pressure of, like, I was successful, I was at the top of my game, I was, you know, I captained Ulster, whether or not that was the best season that you had. Captain, we'll forget about Rob for a little bit. And now you're, you know, the co-founder of this company. Was there ever any pressure that was like, I have to do well because people will know me as being Andrew Trimble, rugby player, or international rugby player, Andrew Trimble, you know, match winner, try scorer, blah blah blah. Like, if I fail, what will like
definitely.
Does it erase all of the other achievements?
Yeah, but
not that it like.
No, but
did that ever go through your head?
It never erases those achievements, but it definitely, you know, takes the shine off, you know, who you are and what you're capable of doing. And I suppose whenever you know, look at what guys have done after rugby, it can be quite a turbulent time. I think you get a grace period of a few years, but after a few years, if you haven't got into something and got, like, probably got your teeth into it and got, you know, made some progress, then it can be a bit worrying, or it doesn't always look good. And I was always concerned that, after a couple of years, if this doesn't work out, do I do something else? And after a couple of years, does it not work out? And then you end up all at sea, and you end up thinking, well, everything I do, instead of the life lesson that I was sharing earlier on with, if you commit to something and really, work hard at it, you can make that successful. The lesson that you could be teaching yourself inadvertently is, no matter what you do, you're going to be crap at it.
Yeah.
And that can be like a really miserable place to be, and then start, overthinking things and just go down a bit of a spiral. So that can be tricky as well, really tricky. And then more practically, we had shareholders that invested money in our business. So if we didn't make it successful, they're going, well,
yeah,
you told us this was going to be successful.
Yeah.
And we're only getting started, so it's not like we're, we've landed this company or not. We're still,
you haven't sold for millions yet.
We're still a very small startup.
Yeah.
And it's promising, but still got a load of work to do to get to where we want to get to. But yeah, I mean, there's no more pressure than taking someone else's money and saying, we're gonna do something with this. Looking at each other, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
That something might not be good, but I didn't specify. So, because I suppose it potentially carries that double-edged sword, doesn't it? Or sorry, it is a double-edged sword that your name carries. Like, it can potentially get a foot in the door, but then there might be an expectation that's higher or greater on you, because it's like, I've seen this guy, sprint down the wing and score an impossible try, so surely he could be able to pull this off.
No, I know it but expectations
even with
probably
like
higher.
commentary and stuff, like, do you ever go in and you're like, I have to know about this? Can I say, oh, I don't really know about that, because you've lived it, so why wouldn't you know about it?
But you can, I mean, if you don't know, if you're not prepared, if you don't know if you don't know the team, if you don't know the way they play, you don't know what their results have been like recently, if you don't know who's injured or why he's in good form, if you don't know that stuff, then that's your own fault, because you're not prepared. But then sometimes if you're over prepared and you're kind of detailed and really detailed oriented, then you lose a level of kind of creativity and conversational and just having a chat about a game that everybody, so the commentating is a really interesting one. And then I always find it, it's important as well to be aware that the people that you're commentating on, a few of them you used to play with, and they're teammates and friends as well. So you got to be aware of that, and just have to find ways to sometimes, because you've played in those scenarios, everything makes sense in your head, or why someone does something, but it's a real challenge to be able to articulate it, which is a really good skill to develop. And it's took me a while to feel confident that I can deliver that. But again, now I feel reasonably confident that I can articulate, why they're in a certain position in the field, what the defense is like, why they're doing something, what options are available to the number 10, this kind of stuff. It's a real challenge to be able to explain that, rather than just, as a winger, I would have felt I was in the backfield quite a bit, looking at what's going on, looking at shapes and trying to read that and get up in the front line, or hold, or work that pendulum or wee bit, or just communicate to guys everywhere else in the defense. So you'd see a lot, but you wouldn't be able to describe it. You just feel it a bit, and you'd see a shape, and you would identify, right, that means there's these options available. So having to describe it is actually really tricky. And then if you get bogged down into like rugby terminology, no one wants to listen to that. That's rubbish. It's supposed to be entertainment. So you have to find this balance of being able to describe something succinctly, but also, be enjoyable to listen to as well, and be interesting.
And would you say, like, the nervousness of getting into commentary and commenting on a match, is it comparable to the nerves you potentially felt before matches? Like, would you, like, we talk about relearning a lesson, or remembering that you've learned a lesson before? Do you think you'll ever write down, these are some great matches that I commentated on, or my commentary for this match is unreal?
That's a good question. No, because you can never reuse old material. I don't think you can. It's never fresh. There's always something, you're reacting to something always unique on the pitch, so you have to always be, have fresh content, or a fresh way, a fresh take on that. But I find music's a really good helper. if you've done all your homework, you know all the players, you know what way they attack, and you know kind of what sort of form they're, all that stuff, you know all the detail, all the boring stuff basically. Then if you can, I suppose, just get into a happy place, get into a nice mindset, listen to some music on the way to the game, just make sure you've had your coffee, you've had a good feed, you're in good form, maybe chat to someone that puts you in good form, and if you're happy again, that's a creative place to be. If you're happy, you tend to be more creative, or more comes to you, I think. So once you've done the hard work, the boring stuff, then just put yourself into a good frame of mind. That's the tool I would use there. So it's totally different to being able to perform on the pitch and in commentary, but
well, it's very different, but very, very like applicable in every scenario, and even across the board. Like if you you talk about mindset, you talk about kind of like, it's that kind of inner belief, and but putting yourself in a good mood, that you're like, yeah, I do believe in myself. Because if you start going down the route of, I've put the work in, but maybe it's not good enough, or I'm really nervous about this, or what if I mess up? It's like, that oh, now the term is gone for me because I can't think anymore. Doesn't matter. It's gonna really bug me. I'll drive home later and I'll be like, that's what I was but yeah, where you kind of almost, because you're thinking of something, that's what's good. Like if you think of a bad thing, that's what's gonna happen. If you think you're gonna mess up, then chances are you can. That's exactly where you're gonna mess up, or whatever. So like, by putting
self-fulfilling
yourself,
prophecy,
that's the one.
Is it?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
I'm in your
Do you wanna
head.
swap? Yeah.
I'm in your head, doctor.
Oh no. We're too similar, Andrew. This is the problem. So yes, self-fulfilling prophecy. So it's like having that mindset, putting yourself into a relaxed position, and that can be like, lots of people do that before performing in the sport. You see athletes like Michael Phelps used to come out with those.
Yeah.
It was an ad for Beats, essentially. Before he performed, or that you see, like if you watch the Olympics, any kind of sport, and people are getting it. And that's why I remember when Usain Bolt came out first, and people were like, but he's not focused. How is he? But that was him putting himself into the mindset that he needed to be in to perform. So even though it's a different environment, you're kind of using the same tools to kind of put yourself into that positive mindset, to put yourself into that relaxed, get those good happy hormones going. Because then you're going to be able to do it again. So I'll give you that information for free, Andrew.
I
won't charge you.
It's the book Atomic Habits. It's something, so he's described something in that book about that, and he said specifically about putting headphones on before a game or whatever your routine is. It puts you in the mindset that you're gonna perform, so it kind of reinforces, I'm the sort of person who performs, especially after I do this.
Well, I mean, like, it's the automation of kind of what you need to do. And if you can, like, there's so much outside of our control, right? And you can't predict how a match is going to go, whether you're playing it or whether you're commenting on it. So you can't say, I'm going to talk about this and this and then this. Or, when you're playing, you're like, I just need to get the ball, do this, and that, because like so many external factors. So I think when you get, and you see it a lot with kickers, their pre-performance routine, the idea behind that is that they kind of put themselves into a mindset that becomes automated. So it kind of closes off that negativity, or closes off the things that they can't control, to put them into a position that they can control. And if you're familiar with it, and if it's put you into, like, don't miss this kick, what are you going to do? You're going to miss it. So you say something positive instead, like, I'm going to get this, or I don't know, whatever. So yeah, it's that kind of idea of putting yourself into the right frame of mind. That could be music, it could be talking to someone, it could be some people, like, those innate conversations that you had pre-match that you're like, they didn't mean anything, but they were distracting enough that if you were all silent in a room, if you'd walked into the dressing room before you're going out to perform and everyone was dead silent, you'd be like, it would actually kind of, put you on edge almost, you know what I mean? So it's, that's kind of what it's about. Like, so different arena, but same kind of process in a way.
And the other thing that I try and do when I'm commentating, or I've done some hosting and emceeing of events and stuff like that, and I try and have the same mindset then, where it's not open season. You don't say whatever you want. But there's been quite a lot of times, and this is probably a bit of a principle I learned whenever I was playing. In Ireland camp, I just would have been in Joe Schmidt or other coaches would have asked questions, and I would rarely have answered. But you just thought, like, risk the reward here. If you get it right, you got it right. Who cares? But if you get it wrong, you look like an idiot. So I always used to weigh that up and just think, it's not worth the risk, right? Because the upside isn't high enough. But then I noticed that loads of guys, something would pop into my head, and then loads of guys would say stuff, and they'd either be wrong, and then the next person would be right. But I often had the right answer. Often had, and Joe Schmidt's not sort of a fellow who gives you credit for no good reason. You only get it if you earn it. Okay, this is how he operates. You don't. They're not rhetorical questions where there's no wrong answers. There are wrong answers, right? So there's a lot of risk involved. But I started realizing I actually know I'm on the same wavelength. I understand what he's getting at. I understand the game plan he's trying to articulate. But I'm still scared about just saying something in a meeting. So then I started like just blurting stuff out, just making myself, telling myself to do it, and just blurting stuff out. And usually it ended up fine. It was okay. And I've tried to have the same mindset, public speaking or commentating. Just if it pops in your head, it's probably okay. It's probably good. It might be funny, might be interesting, might be creative, might be you might be able to have a different angle on something, but just again, back yourself. If it pops in your head, it makes sense, go for it. Even if it's slightly unusual, it's a bit weird, a bit quirky, go for it. Because you don't want to leave some of your personality behind. That's a bit of a lesson I've learned. And sometimes, plenty of times, I come away from games or events and think, that would have been, if I had said that would have gone down very well. Or but usually it works out okay, I suppose, is the point I'm making.
But I think as well, like, what I try to remember in those situations is that people, unless you royally, and I mean royally, mess up and say something absolutely ridiculous off the wall, like your friend Tommy Bowe, when he said that thing about the kids and however, what was it, like
10 siblings,
or
but even that, it was like, hilarious.
It's a hilarious thing, but like, we don't often remember the mistakes that people have made because, again, like, I'll watch TV, I'll watch you or I'll tune into a match, you'll be commentating on stuff. Chances are I'll remember something really insightful that you say over and above something that I'm like, I didn't really get that. Don't know what you're talking about there, Andrew. Do you know what I mean? So, like, we can get really caught up on, like, I don't want to mess this up, but like you said, it potentially then makes us miss out on opportunities to say something that is really insightful, or is really clever, or is really funny even, because you have to. The way I try to do it is I try to go, but nobody's going to remember unless I say something really, really, really bad. Nobody's going to remember the bad stuff that I say, but they'll hopefully remember something good that I've said or contributed to. So
the upside is higher than you think, and the downside is probably not as low as you think.
Exactly. Okay, one more question, because I'm just aware. Oh, I pressed my watch and now it's gone off. Just aware of the time here. Jeez, we've been chatting for ages. One last question, and then we'll go into the kind of quick fire round to finish up for you. What did you want to be when you grew up? Did you always want to be a rugby player? Was that something you always kind of, was there ever any other plan, or was there any other, well, I know you were a big soccer fan for a little while you were allowed, and is there, having been 5 years out of the game, you've got loads going on at the moment, but is there something that you're like, in another 5 years I want to be known as Andrew Trimble ...
Growing up, I really did. After I got over that initial interest in football, after that was kicked out of me, then really it was pretty one-dimensional. I did just want to be a rugby player. I played drums in a band when I was a teenager.
Oh, really?
And I would have loved to have, that was another, I would have loved to have been Jimmy Chamberlain from the Smashing Pumpkins. That was who would have liked to be when I was a teenager. Which obviously the guys around me.
black clothes,
Yeah.
eyeliner,
Yeah. Well, I
check
always
shirt.
feel like the other guys around me let us down a wee bit.
Oh,
So
okay.
there's no Billy Corgan and there's no James E.
Okay,
hat,
yeah.
you know. So I can't be
You could have made it,
I
but
can't be the Smashing Pumpkins on my own, guys.
no.
You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, they let me down a little bit. And now at 38, what do I want to be? I suppose I want I'm very dedicated to the business. I really want to make sure the business is successful and we continue to grow it. And we're probably at that stage now where it's less of it's not a lottery. It's not as much of a lottery as an early stage startup. We got some traction in the market. We got some good logos and brands and teams. And we got enough validation that we can have a bit of confidence, which changes everything for us. So, and now we're at that stage. I would be really disappointed if we didn't grow the business for a few more years and see where we get after that. It's hard to know exactly what that looks like.
Yeah.
But we want to grow the business and make a success of it and make shareholders and people who have supported us from day one. That was always my thing when I was playing rugby. It always meant more to me that I made my mum and dad and my family and you know friends that supported me from day one, made them proud of me. And then my teammates, because they're right in it with me and they see all the hard work that goes on behind the scenes. I always want to make my teammates and the people supporting me at the start. So maybe similarly with the business now, I want to make, you know, shareholders and people who supported us right at the start and, you know, spent time with us whenever, you know, they were busy doing other stuff as well, make them, you know, proud that they looked at us at one stage and we were just a thought or an idea or an MVP or a prototype. 5 years later, you know, we were a successful business and we were able to scale it. That's what I'd love to, you know, imagine where we could get in a few years' time.
Sell your startup for millions.
Maybe, yeah.
Retire early at 40, 45.
45, full-time podcaster then.
Yeah, full-time podcaster,
1 day a week.
Part-time underage minis coach.
Yeah. 4 days, leaving the kids to school, picking the kids up from school, doing the kids' homework.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I might invest in your company if you can give me with all of my money. Yeah. Right. Well, I want to say thanks for giving such insightful answers and having a really good conversation. I've really enjoyed having that chat with you. Before you finish up properly, I'm going to give you the quickfire questions.
Okay.
So literally, I do say literally just one word answers. Sometimes because I'm nosy, I ask you to elaborate on them, but you don't. So just whatever comes to your head, first of all. So first one, staying in or going out?
Staying in.
Is that because you're old now?
That's 2 words.
Yeah.
And yes, it is because I'm old. Yeah.
Reading a book or watching a movie?
Movie.
Any good movies that you've watched lately?
Banshees of Inisherin is brilliant, and Anything Everywhere All at Once.
I've been meaning to watch both of them.
Yeah,
so
they're
I need
both
to get
brilliant.
on them. Talk about it or think about it. I think you kind of answered this one earlier.
Think about it for 5 weeks.
Yeah, eventually.
5 weeks is my.
That's your cutoff point.
Yeah,
You're like, okay, done now.
Yeah.
Time alone or time with friends?
Time with friends, but can I elaborate?
Yeah.
My friends that know me well.
Yeah.
They call me if I'm ever away for a weekend or a trip away or something, they call me Day 2 Andy, because I'm really good fun, really, you know, good chat, interested in the conversation for the first day, and then after that I want to go home.
You're done. There's a limited time. Just like thinking about it, you've got a limit on the amount of time.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Podcast or playlist listening to now, not because now I'm curious if you know, bring your drums into the whole.
Yeah, a bit of both. Playlist, mainly playlist.
Yeah. Cooking for yourself or ordering a takeaway?
Ordering a takeaway.
What's your go-to takeaway?
Indian or pizza. Pepperoni pizza, butter chicken.
Again.
Peshwari naan.
Yeah.
Onion
too
bhajis.
Similar. Favorite childhood TV show?
Friends.
Nickname you've been called and why?
A nickname. I'm trying to think of any of the ones that would be proud of. Or no, I wouldn't be proud of any of them.
I mean, you're obviously known as Trimby.
Trimble, yeah.
But that, like,
yeah, that's not
there's
it.
no
Yeah.
kind of. Was that what you were called, like, when you were playing and stuff? Like, would your teammates call you Trimby, or would they call you Andy, or would they call you Andrew?
Trimby when I started playing rugby, but my teenage years it was Trimble. I got the
Okay.
full title.
Full, yeah.
Full
Your
name.
dad would have been happy with
Yeah,
that.
yeah. And my coach in school called me Trimby one time, and the guys abused me. They thought this is so stupid. Like, how rushed for time are you? Why do you just call him
Yeah.
Trimble?
I
Have
mean,
him
it's
see
pretty
him.
much the same
It's the
syllables,
same.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So they thought that sounded really stupid.
Yeah.
But then now that whenever I started, I don't know, later on in life, it became normal.
That's what you
And
were
when it
called.
becomes normal, then no one takes the piss anymore.
No. Okay. So, but no other.
Not really, no.
No.
Sorry.
It's all right. You don't have to apologize.
I'm sorry. Should have made one up.
What's well, you may have covered this. What's your favorite food?
Oh, pizza.
Pizza. What was your favorite subject in school?
I did maths and sciences in school, and I actually enjoyed maths and sciences. I was nerdy, but I would never call myself a nerd because I wasn't smart enough to be a nerd.
Okay, because you, again, your Wikipedia told me that you went to study physics.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nerdy.
Yeah, but that was my mum and dad. My mum in particular suggested I did physics because it would open up some wonderful career opportunities.
Really?
Yeah, and I dropped out after 6 months.
What career opportunities come from physics?
Yeah, I know it seems like a bit of a dead end, but I think apparently you can do a lot with it. If you finish the course, you can do a lot with it.
But not after 6 months. And then your hidden talent, if you have one.
I haven't got one at the minute.
Well, playing drums, like, that's not something that everyone can do.
Yeah, I can play the drums. I used to be a lot better, only because I'm not very good now. But I'm learning how to play the bodhrán.
Oh, cool! Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe we'll revisit that, and that might be my talent someday.
Yeah, we'll do a talent show.
Yes.
And you can come
Tackle
on
your feelings talent show.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, that's it. That was really enjoyed that chat.
Thank you, Hannah. Thanks for having me.
Hope it was painless as possible, and thanks so much for coming and joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Tackle Your Feelings podcast. To find out more info about the topics discussed and for tips on your own positive mental well-being, as well as information about and how to sign up to the Tackle Your Feelings Schools programme, please visit tackleyourfeelings.com.